and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and every other Friday, I bring you a short episode with the top diabetes stories and headlines happening now. In the News is brought to you by Edgepark. Simplify your diabetes journey with Edgepark. Our top story this week, type 1 diabetes is increasingly affecting older adults in the U.S., with prevalence rates peaking in those aged 45 to 64, according to recent research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. This report says the life expectancy for people with type 1 has increased over the last 15 years, which has led to increased prevalence among older adults. The CDC currently estimates that about 1.8 million people in the U.S. have type 1, and this was a very big study looking at data from 2019 to 2022, including more than 140,000 people. It suggests that further research is needed to develop treatment guidelines that include strategies to optimize treatments in older adults living with type 1. Current clinical practices basically extrapolate from data on younger populations or from those with type 2, which, quote, may not be entirely appropriate for older adults with specific needs in terms of cardiovascular and glycemic management. Pancreatic cancer research may have implications for diabetes. These researchers were looking at an enzyme called focal adhesion kinase. They said during the trials, quote, the pancreas looked weird, almost like it was trying to regenerate after an injury. Even weirder, a cluster of cells in the pancreas were expressing both insulin and amylase. Normally, insulin is produced by beta cells. Amylase, a digestive enzyme, is manufactured by different cells, and the functions of these cells are very different, so it didn't really make sense that this was happening. But in their paper, the researchers say this enzyme-inhibiting drug was changing the other cells into insulin-producing ones and helping regulate blood glucose. Very early animal testing only, but they are hoping to launch a clinical trial to test this inhibitor in diabetes patients and investigating the effects in pancreatic tissues from human donors. Doctors Without Borders and T1D International are out with a new report showing huge markups by pharmaceutical corporations on insulin pens and newer diabetes medications. According to their research, long-acting pens, which are the standard of care in higher-income countries, could be sold at profit for as low as $111 per patient per year. That includes the insulin and the device needed to inject it. And that's 30% less than insulin in a vial with syringes, which has long been thought to be the most affordable option. Doctors Without Borders is among one of the very few humanitarian groups currently procuring insulin pens, and they say only half of all people in the world who need insulin have access to it. This report asks the U.S. to do more to ensure equitable access to diabetes groups worldwide. The FDA is warning about a software glitch found in the Tandem T-Connect app connected to the t:slim X2 insulin pump. They classified the issue as a Class 1 recall. That is the most serious type of recall. However, this actually happened back in March, and Tandem says it has been resolved. So here's what happened. There was an error in the Apple iOS-based software version of T-Connect, the mobile app used for the t:slim X2 insulin pump. The app will crash and relaunch repeatedly, leading to excessive Bluetooth communication, and that drains the pump battery, which can lead to an unexpected pump shutdown. More than 85,000 insulin pumps distributed in the U.S. between February and March had been affected by the issue, but Tandem says they sent a letter to all the customers, they updated all the apps, 98% of users have switched to the newer version, and the company has not seen any issues with that latest app. If you feel you were affected by this, you didn't get a letter from Tandem, you're in that 2% that hasn't updated the app. Check the show notes. We always have our sources linked up. Better yet, give Tandem a call. A new drug meant to be given in addition to insulin for the treatment of type 1 diabetes in order to prevent lows moves ahead to its first phase 3 trial evaluating the safety and efficacy. I do not know how to pronounce it. I will give it my best shot. Catasegliatin. The phase 3 study will assess 2 doses of the drug administered orally in patients currently being treated either MDI or with pumps who use a continuous glucose monitor. What they're looking for here is a lessening in hypoglycemic events. This received breakthrough therapy designation based on its phase 2 trial, which showed a 40% decrease in the frequency of severe and symptomatic hypoglycemic events. Well, timing is everything. The same day we released our episode about the Eversense CGM last week, Sensonics, in collaboration with Essentia Diabetes Care, announced that their CGM has received an iCGM designation from the FDA. You need that iCGM to create an automated insulin delivery system. In the press release, they didn't talk about any specific pump partners, but it is worth remembering that back in 2018, Beta Bionics, their pump the iLet is now FDA approved, was announced as a partner for Eversense. A lot can change. It has been 6 years, so we'll follow up on that. Right back to the news in just a minute, but first, Diabetes Connections in the News is brought to you by Edgepark. And you've worked hard your whole life. Diabetes management shouldn't slow you down. Edgepark is your trusted go-to supplier for all things diabetes management supplies and continuous glucose monitors, like Medtronic's Guardian Sensor, Dexcom G7, and the Freestyle Libre 3. Edgepark accepts most insurance plans, including select coverage for Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans, and Edgepark navigates insurance complexities for you and handles the paperwork. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Edgepark logo to learn more about Edgepark's diabetes supplies. A big win for people in Georgia with Medicaid. Governor Brian Kemp signed into law a bill that expands CGM access to people with Medicaid and diabetes who are on insulin therapy or have a lot of low blood sugars. It removes the age limitation that was there, and there was an endocrinology requirement that is also no longer needed. More information again in the show notes. 12 marathons to go for ultra runner Linda Carrier. She's the first woman to complete the World Marathon Challenge. That's 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, 3 times. She is 61 years old and she lives with type 1 diabetes. A great article about her on Healthline. I will link it up. I'm exhausted reading this. She has run 78 marathons, 55 half marathons, and she is on a goal to run a marathon in all 50 states with just 12 more states to go. Unbelievable. And that is in the news. If you like it, please share it. On both the Type 1 and Type 2 shows next week, you're both going to be hearing the same interview because this is relevant to all people with diabetes. We are talking to one of the lawyers who is bringing one of the class action lawsuits against the insulin companies, and he needs your help. Look for this on social media too, because I'm going to ask you guys to help me out here. But this was really informative, and that comes your way Tuesday on the Type 1 feed and Wednesday on Diabetes Connections Type 2. Until then, I'm Stacey Sims. Thanks so much for joining me. Be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.